welcome back to the podcast. And in today's video, we are doing a review on The Last of Us. The Last of Us is a post-apocalyptic zombie game which is spread by a fungal virus. This is a game that has been known for a very long time for its great storytelling, great graphics, great characters, and just a great all-around game. Today marks the 10-year anniversary of The Last of Us, and I thought this was quite fitting for me, as this is one of my favourite games of all time. They just released a new remake on the PS5, so this was fitting for the review. Naughty Dog has a good reputation. This is because of games such as Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, and the Uncharted series. These are all games that have been known to do very well. So The Last of Us was in very, very good hands. If you don't know about these reviews, we talk about things like gameplay, the graphics, of course the storytelling, and at the very end we give it a rating out of 10. 10 means it's the best game ever, and 0 means that it's absolute crap. So without further ado, let's get into it. The gameplay I thought in this was quite it was quite well for this game. So it's a bit different as it's quite linear, um, it's quite grounded, but it's realistic, and that's something I really appreciate about the game. Um, it's simple but effective, and it really makes you feel like you're in the world of The Last of Us. And that goes along with things such as the crafting items, which they try to keep it realistic as they make items very scarce. Um, so you really have to decide what you create and when you use it, as things like bullets and even just health kits, stuff like that. You have to be very careful about when you use them, and it makes the immersion of the game a lot better, as it makes it feel more like you're actually in the post-apocalyptic world. Get onto the graphics. The graphics have actually changed quite a lot over time, as the game originally came out in 2013. At the time, these graphics were very good. They were probably some of the best graphics you could have on the PlayStation, but they were only able to go up to 720p. So then the next year on the PS4, they made a remaster where the graphics were completely enhanced and it looked, again, amazing for that time. And even now, looking back at it, it does still look pretty good. But the 2013 original can be a little bit dated. So that's why they decided to make the PS5 version, which is a complete remake of the game with all new graphics and everything, similar to The Last of Us Part 2, which came out in 2018. And these graphics were amazing, to say the least. When you watch cutscenes, you're just in the world immediately. Everything to the environment, you can see the textures on everything, the leaves, the trees, the buildings, even just the way that things move. The shadows are all completely redone for the PS5 and it looks incredible. They also did motion capture, which is something that they're starting to do more of now in games such as NBA 2K, and they've even done in movies such as Avatar. And as we can see from something like Avatar, which I've done a review on before, make sure to check that out. We see the motion capture, which enables people to get pinpoint details on the actors and allows them to have a better showing of that in the game, or in Avatar's case, the movie. and it really shows in this remake, as you can tell, with all the facial expressions and the way that the characters like show their emotions, and it really makes you more immersed into the story. Alright, so now we're getting on to the storytelling. This is my absolutely favourite part of this game. This is the most defining part, which I would personally say is actually better than most TV shows out there. The way that they do the story is absolutely incredible. It's quite basic when you hear it, but when you actually witness everything from your own eyes, you just get to see how great this really is. So, as a very brief overview, we see Joel Miller and his daughter at the start of the outbreak. She unfortunately dies, and from this, we get a time jump of 20 years after the outbreak when he is with Tess. They go on adventures together, and from this, they eventually come across Ellie. Ellie is the other main protagonist, and she's just a young girl, about 14 years of age, and she is traveling with them because she's immune. She's immune to the infected, and they believe that there's a cure. So Joel and Tess have to try to take her to where she's meant to go, but on this journey, Tess unfortunately gets bitten, which just proves that nobody's ever safe, as she was shown to be one of the main characters. So then it's just Joel and Ellie, and together they go across many different things. Lots of infected, lots of other people trying to survive, and it's just them two. Just them two, whether it's walking or driving or hiking through woods, just anything. And all of this just shows how dark and how unsafe they always are, and how it's hard to trust anyone. And I feel like that's very important for the story, as it makes you feel like nobody's ever safe. And so then they eventually come across Sam and Henry, who are people that they begin to trust, but unfortunately Sam gets bitten, and when this happens he turns, and Henry ends up having to shoot his brother because he wasn't able to save him, and this gets him very sad, so he ends up killing himself because of that. So that just adds the scars for Joel and Ellie. They slowly build trust together, and they eventually become so close they're basically like father and daughter, which makes us engrossed to these characters and makes us really feel like we care for these characters, which gets us to the finale of when Ellie eventually gets the surgery and Joel finds out that she's not going to survive if she does take it. So, with all these emotions flooding through him, the feeling of losing someone he cares so much for, he eventually saves her, even though this risks never finding a cure. So he ends up killing everyone just to save her, and then has to lie to her face just so she can still love him. And I know this is a very brief part of the story, but this is why I recommend this to all of you guys out here, especially the mature audiences, is this is a very, very good story. Everything mixed in with the graphics, the gameplay, everything like that, it just makes this game incredible. There's heaps of things I haven't touched on for the story, but I don't want to be here for a couple of hours, which is seriously how long it takes, which is why I always like to keep these short and simple and give you guys an honest review. So now we're getting on to the characterization and acting. So for this, I want to talk about how characters such as Joel and Ellie um, are portrayed in the game. So, for Joel, he is kind of just like your normal single dad who cares about his loved ones and throws in the odd dad joke. But everything changes since the outbreak as he is now alone. So now he's a lot more cold, and you can see it even just by looking at his face. And that is beautifully done by the motion capture, I must say. And Troy Baker did an amazing, amazing job. You see how cold he is in many, many scenes. You see it how he acts with people, how he always feels like he can't trust anyone. And you might be wondering how you're supposed to like a character like this, but you see it by the little moments from when he does care. And you see the moments with his daughter when he's all happy and he pulls out those jokes, and you just see how much he cares for people. And then it all changes from the outbreak, and we feel sorry for him, and we want him to be happy. And this is when we get to see Ellie. So Ellie is a much more different character, as she's very stubborn and set in her ways, just like Joel. Um, but in this way, she's a lot younger and more adventurous. And a part of this kind of confuses Joel, is he kind of sees things that he sees what he used to see in his daughter, and it hurts him, but it also intrigues him. And when you see this in Ellie, you're like, oh, this is new, this is interesting, but it's also something we've seen before, and that's what makes us want to see more. And we get to see how these characters develop with one another, so they eventually keep joking to each other, and after a while we see that they actually do start to care for each other. And in those troublesome times, it's a much more obvious, but they don't have to show it as much for them to actually tell each other that they care. And it's just in those simple ways that allows the audience to become engrossed by these characters and want them to be together. And it's that father and daughter connection that we feel with these two, which makes us love them. So the soundtrack in this game, I think, is very sweet and very pure. Um, there are many scenes in this game where the soundtrack is utilized to perfection in many moments, such as when Sarah dies, you get the quietness, just no music, no sound, and then you hear the subtle background of just despair and hope lost, which is the best way to explain it. And it's just been empowered by the soundtrack. And there's obviously different types of sound in this. So there's all the very sad types of sound which is carried out throughout. And it's kind of been familiarized with other parts during the game, when during the game it will even just play when you're just walking around, but it's not as sad, it's more just gentle, and it feels right, and it makes the world feel more beautiful. And when you get to certain moments or certain scenes, the music just enhances more layers to it, and it becomes a simple little pluck on the strings, or whatever it may be, to more heavier and more sad, or more lively and hopeful, just depending on what scene you're in. And all this music I absolutely love. It's very calming and it makes you feel like you're more immersed and more in the world and more appreciative of everything that's happening around you. And I love that the music is able to do this in such a story driven game, as in many movies and TV shows, this is shown, right? And the best way to implement it into a game is to put in little bits and pieces here and there when you're playing, and then bring it out again in the cutscenes. And I think the way that Naughty Dog has done this has been amazing, and I can say with full confidence that this game has one of the best soundtracks of all time. Now we're on to the overall rating of this game, and as I said before, I definitely recommend this to everyone. Um, so what I'll give this out of 10 is a 9.5. Absolutely amazing game. I love everything about this. The remake makes this even more incredible with the new graphics and all the new details. It makes it so, so, so good. I absolutely love it. And yeah, this is going to be it for this episode. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and make sure to tune in every single Monday for a new episode of gaming reviews, movie reviews, TV show reviews. You find it all here. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.